Hello Linux lovers, my name's Wimpy, welcome to my world. Okay, we're going to be taking another look at the Ubuntu Retro remix, the progress so far and what we're going to work on next, and a little bit of show and tell. So I'm going to bang out some messages, get this underway, and then we can get into that. So Ubuntu Retro remix, it's a project I started last year. It sat on the shelf for a bit and now it's off the shelf. And I'm working on it again, and the idea is that it is a Raspberry Pi OS based on Ubuntu for running retro game console, emulators and stuff like that, and old like 8-bit, 16-bit computers. So that was the objective, and progress is good so far, and I'm going to go over what I've got, what needs to be done, how it's put together, how maybe that could be improved, and then actually see if we can get the thing playing some games and stuff like that. So we'll be taking a look at all of those things. So let's just think, where should we start? The other thing I'm going to be using is, hey, hello Yannick, how you doing? The other thing I'm going to be using is two of my other projects. One is this side, Ubuntu Mate, the operating system, and then QuickEmu, which we've been building out over, I don't know, the last 6-7 weeks or so. I'm actually using that as my dev environment, so it's all coming together. Hello Luke. No, it was definitely going to happen. The problem is that, oh my goodness, is there a lot of stuff I've had to set up in order to make this go. So welcome, what's that name? Tail Geese, is that Tail Geese? Welcome. And hey Luke, and Alison, hello, welcome. So your hype train conductor, Yannick, well done. I don't know how you achieved that status, but go you. So let's start with actually just very quickly putting an image. So I'll just switch to the overhead view. I'll explain what I've got here. So this is obviously my main keyboard. This hiding under here is a second keyboard and a second mouse connected to a wireless dongle, which is plugged into a Pi 4 here. And then I've got a tail on this, and this is an SSD in a USB stick that we're going to be using as our OS boot drive, so I'll be writing images to this. And then I've also got a controller attached to the Pi, because at the end of the day this is intended to be a games console of sorts, so that stuff should work. So I think that's the overview of the kit that I'm going to be using. That's obviously a beer, essential ingredient. So this isn't a new keyboard. This is my keyboard I've had for a while. I am modding the keyboard in the other office at the moment, so that will be something I do soon. Yes, so the ads, I'm running those manually. I'm automatically triggering pre-rolls at the start of the stream, so that hopefully then new people coming in don't get ads. So it's not a monetization strategy, it's actually me trying to reduce the number of ads that people see. So let's switch over here. What I've got here is this is Pi Builder, which is my virtual machine of Ubuntu Mate 2004 running via QuickEmu, and I'm doing all of the build process in here. So all of the creating the containers and making the images for the Raspberry Pi all happens inside this VM, and that's to keep it isolated and off my machine, and also it's to sort of stress QuickEmu and make sure that all of those optimizations we've been working on work nicely, including a new one here. So I've got this ticked here: auto redirect newly plugged USB devices. So I built an image just a few moments ago. Here it is. Oh no, that's not it. Here it is here, this one. And here's the USB stick. So I'm going to stick this in my machine, and what we will be able to then do is if I right click on this, so you'll see that this is inside a VM and it sees me plugging in that USB drive. So now I can right click on my image that I built and then use the image writer to write it directly to the USB drive. So I'm able to do all of this inside the VM with no loss of throughput or performance. It's all just, you know, working brilliantly, but it's a massive safety net because there's a lot of complicated stuff that happens inside this VM, and if it was on my host machine, there's a very good chance I can completely hose it. So for example, the VM is creating containers, which is fine, but those containers are ARM instruction set containers, and then it's using syscall translation to run these ARM containers to build these images. So it builds the images, you know, quite fast because it's building on a Threadripper system, but it looks like this Threadripper's behaving like a sort of an ARM supercomputer, so ups the development iteration time considerably. So hey Sneaky Linux, thanks for stopping by, welcome. Hello Esme, welcome back. Are you well? So you made 37 cents on ads last month. Yeah, I think you probably made more than me. I think I managed about 27. It's not, you don't run ads for the money at all. I'm trying to keep it minimal. So let's have a look. So Halifax says retro games and Linux distro building. I'm in. Yeah, and there's an interesting little thing. So we've put the image out. So we'll close this down and we'll eject this drive. Now, something to show you about the image, which I think's interesting, and you'll need to remember this. So this is the compressed image here, and it's 632 meg. It can get smaller, and I will make it smaller, but that's how big it is. Now, it's derived from this image of the Ubuntu server for the Raspberry Pi, which is up here, which starts at 886. Now, remember that this is smaller because in a moment I'm going to show you something that kind of defies why that's the case. So there's some good fun stuff going on here. So we're going to plug this in. So plug this into the Pi. I'm using this tail to make it a bit easier to sort of shunt this thing around. I may need that mouse at some point. Mega cluttered. This is super complicated for me because I've got so many virtual displays and then virtual keyboards and mice and what have you. So I'll then power up the Raspberry Pi. So let's just move over to the capture side of things. So we're going to power up this USB drive, and this is a first look at the current state of Ubuntu Retro Remix. And I'll talk through what's in it, why it's there, and then I'll talk a bit about things that I've learned and what I'm going to work on next. And I may start some of that this evening. So, yeah, the pre-rolls are a pain, that's for sure. They're going to come round super fast again, unfortunately. But I've pushed the ad to the minimum, so I think it'll do a 15-30 second ad break every hour, I think is what it's going to try and do. So this is booting up. What will have happened? Oh, I've turned my my little camera off. Let me just get that back on. Hello. So there we are. We're in. We've booted up now. I haven't quite figured this out, but for whatever reason, my capture card shunts the image up a little bit, so we'll just have to deal with that. But if I've got hold of the controller here, and I'm using the D-pad on the controller, and I'm navigating around. So that was the first boot, and a couple of things happened on the first boot. One was the file system got automatically partition got moved out and resized on the fly. And it booted into this, and this user interface, if you've not seen it, is called Ludo, which is an alternative libretro front end from members of the libretro team, and this is entirely implemented in Go. And the reason that I've chosen this is it has two modes of operation. It can be run as a regular like desktop application, but it also has a mode called LudoS, which is for the maintainers who make their own OS around OpenELEC or LibreELEC for Ludo. And it has these sorts of features. So if I go in here, you'll see that there is the option to configure Wi-Fi. And further down the screen here, you'll see you can enable and disable some sort of essential services like SSH and Samba and Bluetooth. Bluetooth for sort of connecting wireless controllers, and SSH, for logging in, and Samba for getting your games on and off of the device. And then, of course, Wi-Fi here to actually establish some connectivity. Now, I will demonstrate something, which is this. I'm just going to hit this button a couple of times. I'm going to try and turn Samba off a couple of times, and you will see there's a bunch of notifications there. Exit status 1. If you're not a programmer, exit status 1 is bad. Obviously, that didn't work. So I know why. We'll come back to that in just a moment. But at the moment, this is running as an unprivileged user, which is what I would have expected. But in actual fact, Ludo, when running in its OS mode, expects to run as root. So I'm just going to roll with that for the time being, and I'll get to how we're going to do that in just a moment. But this is the user interface. And this is how you can configure it. There's obviously some default configuration that is part of the system. And then if you've played games, you can see what you've played recently here. And here you can scan a directory to pick up games in order to add them to your library of games to play. So I'll demonstrate all of that later. But for the moment, what we're going to do is we're going to exit here, because this will demonstrate another feature of the Retro Remix, which is a little bit different, and it's kind of a safety net. So I'm pressing escape to exit Ludo entirely. And what's going to happen now is the display manager is going to load. Some people know that's like the login manager. And the display manager that we're using here is LightDM, which is used in many distributions and projects. Hang on, why is that? Oh, there we go. So from here, you'll see that there are now two sessions. There's this one, which is what we were just doing to play the console. But then there's Gnome Flashback. And if you're familiar with the Gnome project, Gnome Flashback is the bit of Gnome 3, which is like the continuation of the Gnome 2 look and feel. So I'm going to log in to, if it helps if I use the other keyboard, I'm going to log into this session. And this is something that I've put together. So this is a super minimal desktop environment. And it's based on Gnome, because I thought one of the reasons for me making this whole Retro Remix is for me to learn a bunch of stuff. So one of the things I've, you know my password, Yannick. Are you sure about that? One of the things I wanted to learn was like how to do stuff with Gnome. I mean, it's a lot like doing stuff with Mate desktop, which is, what I work on. But, so what I've done here is I'll just turn my camera off a second so I'm out of the way whilst I just show you what we've got here. And the idea is that this is a super minimal desktop environment that's just enough to, for example, put games on the device, or extract them, or hoover them up, or get a Wi-Fi connection or a terminal. So Ludo, for its Wi-Fi connectivity that I was demonstrating earlier, which is integrated, it uses Conman, which is a bit like Network Manager, but it's designed for sort of embedded devices, so it's a much smaller, trimmer thing. So fortunately, that has a graphical front end. So here it is. So using this, you can connect to your Wi-Fi and get the thing on the network. So let's give this a go. Remember to try and use the right keyboard this time. There we go. And hopefully that should connect. There we go, and we're connected to the wireless network. So now we can use familiar sort of, shortcuts to bring up a terminal. But this isn't GNOME terminal. This is a really nice, minimal, sort of trim GTK3 terminal implementation I found. I'd never heard of it. It's been around for years, apparently, and it's terrific. So by installing this, it kept down like a number of the underlying GNOME pieces that needed to be installed. And what we have here is the ability to sort of look at the the directory structure. So let's just look at that in the file manager. Oops. Oh yeah, and I've put the archive manager on here because I thought, if you're working with ROM files, you may want to unzip them and extract them and things of that nature. So if we take a look here, the way that so Ludo, when it runs in its OS mode, has a number of expectations about how it's going to run. I'll just take a sip of beer and I'll explain that. Also, Joey Bites, I'm glad you like my colour scheme. Yes, Esme, this is the accidental distro. So whilst I was iterating on this, I found myself needing to go into, some sort of windowed environment and poke around in the internals of Ludo to figure out why things weren't working. And I was using OpenBox and, UXRVT and all that sort of thing. And I was like, oh, I'm sure there must be something better we can do. So I've made this, and it is literally the bare bones of what you can do with GNOME. So we've just got the session manager up here as an indicator to log in and log out, and you can open the control center. So you can configure keyboards and mice and, can all of that sort of stuff, all of the basic bits and pieces, but no more. So it's super, super trim. Now, what we have here is we have a directory in the home directory called Retro, and this is where all of the Ludo data files are kept. So when you come to add your ROMs, you would put them in this ROMs directory. So this, this is the very bare bones OS. Now, what I'm wondering is if I am on the network, let's just check that that's the case. I'm pretty sure I should be. Yep, we can see the internets. I'm just going to open something on my own machine. Just a moment. I'll do this off screen. I'm just going to see if I can do something. So if I come back here and I find the IP address of this device, right, 2.121. If I go over here, I don't know if this is going to work, so I just thought I'd give it a try. It is going to work. Okay, so I'm just going to come back to a different screen here. I'm dragging down here a file manager from my host machine, and I've just gone to the Samba path of the device. So as you can see here, we can see those directories that we were looking at on the Raspberry Pi. So Samba is running on the Raspberry Pi and is enabled by default. And if we go into the ROMs directory here, we should just be able to connect with no credentials. Here's an empty directory. So what we could do is, if on my machine I open another local thing here, if I do this, Nintendo Entertainment System, so I'm on my machine at the moment, and I'll extract, this is a collection of no intro 1G 1R ROM collections. So there's a directory of Nintendo stuff. We'll copy that and we'll drop that onto here. So that should copy over a bunch of oh man, cannot be copied because you do not have permission. So there we go, live testing. It was all going so well. So we'll put that on. So I obviously need to tweak my Samba configuration. That was all going too well, but you get the idea. So when I fix that, the idea is you can shove your games on over Samba. Bother. I'm a bit disappointed that didn't work. I wonder if I can do let's try that storage, I think, is where it needs to go. Remember this, add a bookmark, and we'll call it, well, we'll call it Ludo for the time being. Let's see if I can get in over SSH. No. Oh, no, of course not. Actually, I haven't finished bringing up the SSH implementation yet. That's one of my things for the future. Oh, well, you get the idea. It didn't work, but you get the idea. So if I just take a moment here, what did I miss? So, yes, test is my password. Indeed. Do you have transmission? No, I don't have transmission on it. I don't want to put anything in there that is unnecessary. I was wondering if maybe a text editor, a graphical text editor, was a good idea. I mean, it does have a terminal. It does have Nano, the best editor ever. So, you know, technically, you're sorted. I'm glad you like that minimal desktop sneaky. I'm quite pleased with it. It is mega trim. I like it so much. I seriously considered setting it up on one of my laptops as like my starting point, because then of course you just start installing, you know, browsers, code editors and the actual stuff you need, and you're starting from sort of, you know, a zero cruft position. So I quite like it, I have to say. Maybe I'll spit that out as a script you can run on like an Ubuntu server image to just, you know, bootstrap. Well, not quite crunch bang, but, you know, just a really raw, you know, system that you can then make your own. Right then. I'll allow that. Okay. Yeah, so Luke, the colours I'm using here were just from a theme that existed. That I'm making use of, rather than trying to, you know, brand match what you created. It was, you know, the MVP. We can see the internet. I see dead people as well. Right then. So what have we got here? Sneaky says, I had this the other night with permissions. Yeah, I'll figure that out. I mean, it's those problems are the easy ones to solve. I've solved a lot of the hard problems already. We've got a few more to overcome, but we're getting there. Oh, Yannick, honestly, he's so resistant to the obvious truth of it that, you know, Nano is the best editor. Right, okay, so that's what we've got so far. So now what we'll do is we'll use the desktop environment to make a change to the way that Ludo is executed. So let me just turn my camera back on here. Hello again. Right then, let's use this flimsy keyboard here for the Pi and do some stuff. So what I was saying earlier is that Ludo, when it runs in its OS mode, wants to run as root. So we're using LightDM to configure the system. So if we just do that'll do. And here's the LightDM config that makes that happen. Okay, so it says auto login with the user Ludo. Now, a couple of interesting things. Ludo, when it runs in OS mode, absolutely expects to find things in /storage. So I have made /storage the home directory for the Ludo user. And that's so when Ludo's running in OS mode, it can do what it needs to do in this directory, but then also the regular user account that you use for the desktop environment is in the same place by default. So that's one little integration that I've done. And then what we'll do is we'll actually just change this LightDM configuration using the best editor. Oh, you see, you can't see me again. This is I definitely need to set this thing up to move my camera into the corners. So what we'll do is instead of auto logging in with Ludo, we will auto log in with root. Now what this will do is when we start the system, it will auto log in as root to the Ludo, console emulator. But it won't run as root when we log into the desktop environment because we log into that as a regular user. So let's use the right mouse and let's reboot this Raspberry Pi, and we'll then look at some of the differences in how Ludo behaves when it's running as root. I don't want to shut down, I want to restart, don't I? There we go. Right then. So, hello, Salvatore boy. I think I've got that right. Welcome to the stream. And Sneaky says, is there a reason you're running LightDM? The reason I'm running LightDM is if you use GDM, which is Gnome's manager, you literally get all of Gnome. So that was out of the question. LightDM's really easy to work with, doesn't have a lot of dependencies, and it can do what I'm about to do, which is launch sessions as root without too much messing around. I still think there's a bit of messing around I'm going to need to do to get this working nicely, but it got this far. So if I go back and pick up my controller again and navigate around, which button is it? That one. First thing you'll notice is if I go to Samba, I can now, if I just turn the chat off for a second, I can now turn Samba off. And I did verify by being logged in whilst I was doing this. We can do this in the desktop session. It is actually... this was the wrong one to demo. If I try and turn it back on, it locks the whole system up. That's the one thing I need to fix with the whole running this thing as root integration. So I think I'll need to. I've just pulled the power out and I've plugged the power back in again. So we'll bring the Raspberry Pi back up. So what you can do is now it's running as root. It can enable and disable SSH and Bluetooth. And the Samba bit works, it actually stops the processes, but when you try and re-enable Samba, it falls, the whole system hard locks. I'm sure that's some running as root thing, because I literally just, as you saw,
Thank you for the follow, Salvatore boy.
Thanks, Salvatore boy, welcome. I'll get back to the minimal layout in just a moment. So the service turning on and off works, and also you're able to connect to Wi-Fi from this user interface as well, which you can't do when you're running as an unprivileged user. So that I will probably work on this because Conman is accessible over dbus, so it doesn't need to be done in the root context. It could be done as a regular user, and maybe using PolicyKit, the starting and stopping of services could be integrated without privilege escalation.
Thank you for the follow, Sneaky Linux.
Thanks, Sneaky. Oh, in fact, actually, we're getting dangerously close to something. I see there's a bunch of questions. I will come and open. Oh, what's going on with my? Oh, I need to save. There we go. Right. Let's just change this a second. Oh, no, that's highlighted the wrong button. Manage that. There we go. Copy that. End that. Click on that. Sorry, we'll just get this going. There we go. Right then. So, I saw some questions, so let's go back and actually answer these questions. Let's have a look then. So, Andy Hazen, no, it's not Mate. I did start with Mate, but I know how to do it with Mate. So I wanted to learn how to do it with Gnome. So it's actually a really, really minimal Gnome Flashback with actually not many Gnome components. And I'll actually show you what it's comprised of. It's maybe 10 packages, I think, something like that. So I'll show you in just a little bit. Yeah, so Salvatore Boy, it's not XFC, that was actually Gnome. So yeah, well that's the idea. And also the idea about this is these are going to be case specific builds. So there's all of these interesting cases that look like different consoles from the past. So RetroPie, each RetroPie image is going to be specific to those cases and the GPIO capabilities that are built into those cases. So I'm planning that I'll publish images and, you know, regular people will be able to download these. So this backdoor desktop operating system needs to be simple and easy to use. So, and OpenBox was not that, in my opinion. Right then. So that's yeah, it was Gnome. Yeah, and I'll show you how it's built in just a little bit. So I'm just going to demonstrate that this does work in air quotes. So the SSH doesn't. The SSH integration is incomplete because I need to create a one-shot systemd unit which triggers a regeneration of the SSH keys. Obviously, when this image is built, I strip those sorts of things out. And if you've seen my streams going back some days, I was trying to do this with CloudyInit, and one of the things CloudyInit does is regenerate those keys for you. But I had to throw CloudyInit out because it was causing too many other issues. But if I go to the Bluetooth piece here and toggle this now, you can see I'm turning it on and off, and behind the scenes Bluetooth D is actually being turned on and off as you toggle these. So I'm thinking I have them auto enabled by default because that seems sensible, but you know, if you don't want them on, you can just turn them off and it will remember that state across reboots. So in its first boot state, you should be able to go to the Wi-Fi, connect your Wi-Fi, and then when I fix the Samba stuff, copy all your files over and you're good to go. So that's where we are with this. It's Ludo I really like. As a user interface, it's new. Not many people are doing anything with it. It's not complicated. There's not too many buttons to twiddle. And what I think we should do is probably put some games on here to demonstrate how that works. So let's use the main menu. Let's see if this works. And let's say shutdown. Well, that worked. It's off. This is a legit no signal from my capture card. So that is off. So let's move over here. I'll pull the USB out of the device. Now I'm going to plug this into. I didn't think this through. My VM is going to capture this device. Okay, let's do this. I'll have to tell my VM to stop capturing new USB devices. One mini moment. Because I've got my ROMs on my main machine. So let's just say don't redirect new USB devices. Okay. And let's bring up a file manager like so. Oh, Oh, hang on, I've done that in the VM. Silly boy. There we go. Right, so I'm plugging this into the machine. Right. So in the let's just bring up another one of those, stack them side by side. Right then, so in the writable portion of the drive, storage is where everything lives, and then retro, and then ROMs. And what I've rather thoughtfully done is map up the user IDs, so you can just do that. So the user IDs match the default user on, most Linux systems. So if you're a Linux user, haha, it just works like this. What I'm wondering is maybe this storage area needs to go on an extra partition on the end of the device that is, I don't know, let's just say exFAT, for example. And then that way you could plug it into any machine, and any machine could read and write the files to and from that partition where you keep your ROMs and what have you. So I'm thinking I'll probably do that, but for the time being, this is very convenient for a Linux nerd. This works just fine. In fact, something I haven't done, I'll just eject it and plug it back in again, because I want to actually add another system on here to demonstrate another feature. So let's put some Master System games on here. So let's extract those and pick those up and drop those onto storage and retro ROMs. Paste those in there. There we go. Right then, so that's done. So we've put two consoles, like back catalogue of games on. We'll unplug this and we'll move back to the, let's think about this, the capture window where I've actually got the Raspberry Pi. So I'm putting this USB drive back in the Pi, and we'll plug it back in. So this should boot up now. So there we go. As a RetroPie user, do you think it's a good alternative? I think projects like RetroPie and Batacera and Emulation Station and all of the others are fantastic, but Batacera in particular is huge. It does all sorts of stuff, and what I wanted to do was really take this back to basics and just the core fundamentals, which is I just want to play games. I don't want Kodi, I don't want Netflix, and actually for my use case, I want one device per console type. So I'm going to have one of these in a NES case, and there's only going to be NES games on it. I'm going to have a SNES case, there'll only be SNES games on it. I've got a Mega Drive case, that'll be an exception. I'll put all the Sega games on there. But that's what I want to do. So you can just pick that device off the shelf and plug it in, and that's the, whatever console you're going for. So having copied those files over, let's go over here and do this. We're going to add some games to our library. Oh, that was unexpected. This hasn't done what I was expecting it to do. Let's try navigating. It started me off in the wrong place, so that's obviously a little bug I've introduced. But here are the games I copied over. So let's go into the NES, and then we'll say, particularly this folder, and we'll say scan this directory. So if I just turn my camera off, this is scanning how many games? Oops, what did I just turn off? There's the chat back, but what did I do? Where's me? Base gone. So it's going to look at nearly just over 1,700 games. So it's scanning through those. So quite a lick. So, yeah, you should see the Mega Drive case I've got as well. It's a great little Mega Drive case, and so I've got the case for each of the consoles I'm interested in, and I've got reproduction controllers that match those original. There we go. So it's found a bunch of games, it says. So if I now come out of the scan directory stuff, I now have a new section in the thing here for NES games. And here we are. Now I can see something else has happened here. That's interesting. So what it's also done is it has automatically connected to the internet, which is the first time I've noticed that happen. And where possible, it has grabbed cover art, in air quotes, for each of the games it's picked up automatically. These cover images aren't included with the games as far as I'm aware. So now we have a pretty, complete, NES games collection. There's a racing game. That feels appropriate. Let's try and start that. Oh, I pressed the wrong button. Oh, no. I won't be able to find it now because there's so many of them. There it was. There it is. There we go. So there we go. We're now playing the game. Push start. Is that start? That start. Time trial. Go. 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 There we go. One player. Okay. Start again. Start. Start. Pressing the start button a lot. There we go. Is it going to count me in? Here we go. Oh, there we go. So I'm off to the races, quite literally off to the races. So there we go. I don't think I'm playing this game properly. What does that do? Is that break or something else? I don't know. I don't know how to play this. What we can do is hit that button and we can save our progress, take a screenshot, configure the emulator core that's set up for this. So how do I exit these ones? Is it? Yeah, there we go. That's it. So there we go. Playing a game. So now what we'll do is go back this way. There we go. And we'll add those Master System games just because. So this is starting me in the wrong place. So how have I got that wrong? I'll have to have a think about that. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. Go here. Go to. No, not home. It's not in home. No, Martin. Oh dear. Go to storage. Storage. So I did change this yesterday evening, and I think that's where I've disconnected the thing. So here's our scan this directory. Go. So I don't know how many that's going to do. Oh, it's done. 407. 407 games. This is where I'm not sure what the button mappings are for all of this stuff. There we go. And now there's the Master System section, and also, oh, there was one of the games it thinks is an MSX game. So there we go. Let's go in here. Is there something? This didn't find as much cover up by the looks of it. Is there anything in? Well, I know Afterburner. Let's see if this works. Apparently. Push the start button. Well, there we go. So this is it. I can fly. So what buttons fire and stuff? Oh, there we go. I'm firing now. Now, anyone that's played Afterburner, I'm not sure if these emulators are running at a decent lick or not yet. I don't know if this is like how it ran on these things. You know, if this is an accurate representation of how the Master System played Afterburner. I haven't figured out if I need to, like, you know, increase the, try and tune things a bit. But anyway, there we go. We're playing another game. So, I seem to remember there was a dirty cheat on this one where you could just like fly into the corners in the Master System version or something. Right, there we go. And I probably need to figure out which capture device the audio's on and map that in at some point. Anyway, enough playing games. We get the idea. It runs better on the Game Gear. Interesting. Right then. So let's push the... What's this button? I'm just trying out some buttons to see what they do. That appears to be pause. And resume, reset, take a screenshot, or just use that button and I can navigate back out and I'm back here. So hopefully it hasn't got anything in the history. So which one does it think was the Superboy 3? It thought was an MSX game. Oh, and there's no engine for that, apparently. Okay, fair enough. So there we go. So that's what we've got so far. I mean, you know, in terms of MVP, I think we're there, but you know, the devil is in the details. So that's what we're going to be looking at next. Let's shut this down. Do I want to shut this down? Was there something else I wanted to look at on the OS? No, I think I'll shut it down and we'll go through how this is actually built and put together and what needs to happen next to sort of improve things and take it to the next level. So let's exit there. That button. These buttons are mapped, I think, how the original consoles were, but it's backwards for how I do things. And we'll shut this down. Okay, there we go. So it's off, and I will unplug it because I do have a fan on this, and it's a little bit loud. Right then, so if we go to the... let's just go back here for a moment. I'll just have a quick sip of beer. So that's what we're doing so far. And I said that I was going to take this project to a point where it either failed based on the criteria I'd set myself, at which point I would go and use RetroPie or Batocera or one of the others, or I'd get to a point where I realised I could probably do it. And I'm at the point where I realise that this can go the whole way without too much effort. So I'm definitely going to keep working on this, and maybe with your help. So let's just have a look here. Having options is good. Also, I like that Wimpy is making use of open source software to make what he wants. Yeah, I mean that's just, you know, how I'm wired. You know, I love working with existing open source technology. It's like a massive Lego set of software with no instructions, and you can build what you want. That's why I like it. Salvatore says they've got 2 keyboards, and yeah, it gets confusing for sure. In fact, I'm going to spare my sanity. I'm just going to move these keyboards to one side, these extra keyboards and mouse to one side for a moment, so that I don't make that mistake again. At least not while we do the rest of it. So, Salvatore says that they're new to Linux. Well, welcome. And if you want to know more about Linux and stuff like that, you're in the right place. We have a Discord. There's nearly 2,000 of us in there now. So wimpysworld.io/Discord. We talk about desktop Linux and playing games on Linux and streaming with Linux, as I'm doing here, and also making software with Linux. And we've got a number of projects there, including the Ubuntu Mate team. That's where the Ubuntu Mate dev team hang out, and we organise ourselves as well. The Ludo website is currently having host connection issues. Oh, that'll be me. I've DDoSed them. I wish. Right, I think they're hosted on GitHub, so that's a bit odd. So the consoles, the 32X is a perfect port. Okay. Yeah, I mean, this is... so if I probably need to put some C64 stuff on Ludo so that I can work out if it's performing well enough. I think it is, but I need to put some things on that I'm familiar with, so I probably need to get some arcade games on there, particularly 1942 and Bomb Jack and Outrun, which I'm really familiar with those, and then I'll know if it's running up to speed or not, and if I need to tune things. But I think I've got all the hardware acceleration stuff going. I've tested probing around in proc in the kernel, and it certainly tells me that everything's enabled, and I've obviously shut it down now, but in the desktop environment, GNOME reports that it's a fully accelerated 3D environment, so 3D accelerated environment. So I think I've got all the bits enabled the right way. See you, Sneaky. Thanks for stopping by. So Yannick says, is there any other way? Yes, open source is the commodity way now, I think. Yes, so Cody says the real test is going to be the N64 and the Dreamcast. So yes, I know that I'm really interested in some of the earlier stuff. I'm interested in the NES and the SNES because I never had either of those. I only got to play those through friends. Is this right? On the N64, the only game I ever played on that was GoldenEye. Was that the N64 or was that GameCube? I don't know. I'm not up on like Nintendo game history. And I realise that some of those are more demanding than others on the Raspberry Pi. And these, I'm going to be creating these devices, and I'm going to be making it work on different versions of the Pi. So I'm going to be using the Pi 0, the Pi 2, the 3 and the 4, different generations of consoles, and even the compute module, because I've got some handheld ones that I'm going to be making as well. So we'll, test out the performance relative to the different eras and what have you. So hello, Dragonbane, is that what I'm looking at there? I think. Welcome to the stream. So he says, they say joining late, but is the Retro Remix more of a retro console system? Yes, I was just demoing it. It's a new Ubuntu-based OS for the Raspberry Pi that I'm making, designed to run all your retro game collection. So that's the objective. I'm in the early phases of getting this up and running, but I just demoed putting some games on it, scanning some games, playing some games, and kind of the ins and outs. And now what I'm going to get into is how is all of that put together, and what do I need to do next to improve things. So you grew up on the NES and the Genesis, right? Okay. Your GoldenEye was N64, okay. And it's often used to benchmark the N64 emulators. Yeah, the Atari 2600, the only time I played those games was, let's think, you could rent from the local video library Atari 2600 consoles and games, and that's the only time I played the Atari games. So you were born this century, so consequently haven't played these old games originally. Correct. Basically, Dragonbane. Okay. RuneScape username. Okay, very good. Right, so I'm now going to flip over to my code editor and I'm going to show you how this was put together, and we can look at things like how that minimal desktop environment was created, and also things that I've learned through this build process that I'm going to change. And this project will be something that you could fork and use.
Thank you for the follow, Dragonbane 222.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the follow. It could be something you use to create your own Raspberry Pi based operating system. So that's where I'm going to get this to. You could just rip out all the game stuff and you could make your own Raspberry Pi OS, because it's going to be easy to manipulate. So let's take a look at what we've got. Those are my new keycaps. In fact, actually, whilst we're here, I'm sorry, I really like these. Overhead view. These are for my other keyboard, or at least I think they are. So these have arrived. Let's have a look here. Can we see that there? This is the Death Star escape key, and this is the one that's definitely going on the keyboard in the other office. This is a Stormtrooper. So those are new artisanal keycaps that arrived. So okay, it's telling me that they're okay. Fine, I understand. Right then, let's get into this. Let's bring up the code editor. So unsurprisingly, this is basically a shell script that builds this thing, and at the moment what it does is it takes an Ubuntu server image for the Raspberry Pi and it unpacks that and uses that as its starting point. But in my pursuit to optimize these images for size, I've realized that actually this isn't optimal. This isn't the fast path to building the images anymore, because so much gets removed and so much new stuff gets added that I'm going to go back to a technique I used previously for projects like this, where I used Deb Bootstrap to bring up a base system inside the container, rather than starting with like a pre-installed Ubuntu system. So that's one of the big changes, and that will help bring the size of the image down considerably. And also speed up the build time, because it doesn't have to go through this massive reductive process of removing a bunch of stuff and then adding a whole bunch of stuff in. It will just be adding the bits that it needs. So I'm going to drop this piece here. In terms of how this container stuff works, this is proven now. This works very nicely. This is just a wrapper to continually call systemd-nspawn to bring up the container, do some stuff inside it, and shut it down again afterwards, and you'll see that get called. This is the tooling you need on the host. Currently there's a bug in the syscall translation on Ubuntu 21.10, and that's one of the reasons why I started running this inside a VM of Ubuntu 20.04. So this bit is one of the bits I'm going to chuck away. This is the thing that mounts that pre-install server image and copies all of the the files out and uses that as like the base OS to build on. But then it does this, and I made this a bit more aggressive in removing things, and now the longest stage in the build process is removing all of this stuff, which is why I'm going to do what I said, which is not use the server image as a base, actually just build everything from the ground up. Then we're not using any snaps, so we go and make sure that all of that stuff is cleared out. Now there is a snap of Ludo, and I did look at using that, but because of those issues with the integration of the services and the expectation of using the storage path and all of that sort of stuff, the snap's not going to do it for me, so I'm not using not going to use the snap. This I need to clean up, But again, there's another thing here we're removing, which is netplan, and making sure that any cloud configs from the server image are not there, messing up the network bring up. Now, I did try entirely disabling all of the systemd related bits, but I think the way that Conman has been built, it actually integrates with systemd network D. So the first change I'm going to make this evening is just get rid of that, and then what we do is we put this file in the system so that systemd resolve D has upstream DNS servers, so you can resolve names of things on the internet from this Raspberry Pi. So this is just being lobbed in, and then I think I may need to keep this. I can't remember. I need to check. I need to check on something, but this was just creating a stub host file. So let's have a look. We've got some new people here, so let's catch up. So Tassaron says, I got a friend into Linux recently when he started using the Pi 400 as desktop replacement. Yeah, the Pis are great devices to tinker with and learn on. Yeah, the longest step in the install is the uninstall, so yeah, it's got to go. And Caveman Crafting, welcome to the stream. Thanks for stopping by. So hey, Big Pod, how you doing? God bless Twitch's notification system that can't tell if a streamer I follow started streaming. Oh dear, sorry about that. Yeah, well, it is what it is. So now we get into the actual install of it. So this stage here installs what Ludo needs, and only what Ludo needs. So this here, Cloud Guest Utils and Cloud Init RAMFS Grow Root. This is a hook that goes into the initial RAM disk. An ad, okay. And the ad has finished, I think. At least that's what I'm being told. Man, I wish those notifications for the ads were better. I'm going to talk about ads until we're satisfied that ads have gone away. There shouldn't be another ad for an hour. Have the ads all gone now? Can everyone hear me? Are we all back? Good. Okay. So, good. So those of you that have been following me for a while, I'd be interested to know: are there more ads or fewer ads now? Was it better before I started tinkering with that stuff, or is it better now? Let me know which it is. If you're a subscriber as me, you won't see the ads, or if you joined within a particular window, you may not have seen them. The pre-roll will be disabled. So let's just have a little look. So Dragonbane, you could use a Pi 3 to run the Retro Remix, for example. That is capable of running, a lot of those 8-bit and some of the early 16-bit consoles just fine. Caveman Crafting says, I'm sitting here rebuilding my VirtualBox, had a system crash and sadly the V-disk was corrupted. Luckily all my projects are in repos. Yeah. So you might want to look at my other project called QuickEmu, which is the emulation wrapper, or the VM wrapper that we've been working on here. So let's just catch up. Some people didn't get ads, good. I only had pre-roll ads before the tinkering. Okay. Something, you Black Origin. Does that actually work for Twitch ads? Something. Anyway, right. So this is the bit that puts the hooks into the initial RAM disk that does the growing of the file system in the very early boot. So without having to reboot the device, it can extend the partition and grow the file system all within that first boot. And then this is, all the Raspberry Pi firmware stuff, SoC stuff. And then new in 2110 is a new, they've broken out the Raspberry Pi modules into their own sub-package. So we just do a check to see are we running, you know, a newer version and grab those kernel modules. Pi-hole, I don't know if any of those things work. So Dragonbane says uBlock Origin does not have it on this machine, and the ad came right through. Yeah, I thought I would have been very surprised if that, you know, because I'm sure they just inject their own video into you know, the stream. You know, there's no external party involved. This bit here is everything that the Pi needs, or rather Ludo needs, to do 3D stuff. So this is basically the OpenGL stack, and obviously Xorg. So there we go. And then these three things here is Bluetooth, Conman for networking, and Samba for the file sharing. So those are those services that you can turn on and off in the Ludo menus. And here's Ludo itself. So at the moment we're just reaching out to their GitHub releases page, downloading the deb that they publish and installing it. And then we modify a few things. So we modify paths to icons. We create a shell script which is to start Ludo in Ludos mode. You know, this integrated version. And then we create an Xsessions file for it by copying the Ludo desktop file to Ludos, and then just, you know, changing the names around a little bit. Then we install LightDM and Slick Greeter, which is our display manager. So that's a thing we can log in with. Gosh, chat is moving fast. I'm going to have to go back. Oh no, it's fine. It's fine. So Phil says, neither Pi-hole. I have block lists that it keeps missing. Is that, I'm not quite sure what that's about. Okay. So, and then we've now got this root login bit. So we've tested that and it kind of works. So we're going to actually make that the current way of doing things. I think I'm going to have to do more work here. I don't think it's going to be that simple. I think I'm going to have to do some other work in there to make sure that this is reliable. And then we go and pre-build a bunch of directories that Ludo requires. So that's what all of this is doing. And then we create those directories which are used for, you know, the save game states and all the rest of it. So we just pre-create all of those, and then we set the file permissions accordingly. That's the same UID and GID, or user ID and group ID of the default user on Debian and Ubuntu systems, and I think a number of others as well. We lay down a configuration for Ludo to tell it where to get stuff. This all looks fine. I wonder why it looked in the wrong place. And we tell it that these things are enabled by default. These services are enabled by default because they are, you know, they are in the system. So we're basically just getting Ludo to reflect the system state, the default system state, and then when you toggle them, it actually does turn them on and off. Right then, so now we're into desktop. Okay, so this stage is what creates that GNOME Flashback sort of minimal desktop environment. So everything is installed with no install recommends, so it's only installing dependent packages, not recommended packages. And we install the Wi-Fi manager. I've currently got the decomp editor on here because as you'll see in a moment, I built out a whole bunch of default config overrides and I needed that to poke around. We need GNOME Control Center, the Flashback session itself, File Roller, which is the archive manager. This font is the font used in Ludo. So what I've done is I've made this the default font in the desktop environment as well. So there's a little bit of cohesion. And then we have some indicators basically for the session so that you can log out, log in, that sort of thing. Language selector, that's so if you do boot into this thing and you need to use it, you can go into GNOME Control Center and say, actually, I need a Spanish keyboard and I need the user interface in Spanish, and that is what will enable that to happen. Curiously, by excluding recommended packages, none of the SVG libraries got installed, and consequently none of the icons at all rendered on the desktop. So all of those have to be installed discreetly. And then Mutter Common, we're not using Mutter. The window manager is actually Metacity, but the Mutter Common package provides the configuration schema for Mutter, and without that it causes GNOME Control Center to crash. We don't technically need this, but I installed Pulse Audio so that at least in the desktop environment you can test if your audio is working, so I thought that might be quite useful. And then Sakura is the terminal emulator, and then Yaru theme sound is the Yaru sound theme. So we create a desktop entry for Conman so that it can be seen, and then we go and grab a version of the pink Yaru theme, and we, chuck that on the system and make it the default is what we do there basically. And that's a logo from the project. And then this is creating what's called a gschema override file. So this is basically a bunch of default settings. So this is what sets the pink backdrops, how the display manager is presented, the default font, a whole bunch of stuff. Most of it's aesthetics, but we've got some things here like just don't bother with.
Thank you for the follow, Hiargos.
Thanks, Hiargos, for the follow. Welcome. Then we've got a bunch of stuff like disabling the printing subsystem. We just don't need that for what this is going to be doing. Turn auto mounting of plugged devices off because that's mega annoying. It does mount them, it just doesn't open them in your face every time, which I find irritating. Set the privacy settings to not leak any data. Configure the screensaver. And then what we start getting into, this is again, all aesthetics, how the window manager is presented. And then disabling fade to speed up the rendering on the Pi, disabling desktop icons, enabling window previews on Alt-Tab, and then disabling all of the power management features, because otherwise what happens is you sit there with your Raspberry Pi doing nothing for 10 minutes and then GNOME tries to suspend it, and of course the Raspberry Pi doesn't have any concept of what suspend is, so it just locks the device up, so we just turn all of that stuff off. And then we throw down some system configurations. So this is the Samba configuration, which clearly needed some work based on what we saw earlier, but there it is. So that's the Samba config, and then this is the bootloader configuration for the Raspberry Pi itself. So nothing too special there. More bootloader configuration, and then we create our Ludo user, and we add them to the appropriate groups to do things like GPIO, which we'll need when we get into doing the case integrations and what have you. And we create that user, and then we lay down the file system tab, which adds this to instruct the system to grow the file system on first boot. So that's sort of like how it's all done. Then we do a bit of a cleanup, so we make the image pristine. So before we generate the image, we basically make sure there's nothing in here that shouldn't be in there, so we throw away the SSH keys and all sorts of stuff like that. And then we actually take that, make a block device, shove all the data in it, and then compress it. And that's what all of this bit does here. So that's how it's put together and what's inside it. And we've got some things we can improve, and the biggest one of those is not using the pre-install server image at the very beginning, and that's probably the next thing I'll change, because I'll be interested to see how much smaller we can get it with a bit more control over how all of this works. So I see there's been some chat. Let me just go and have a look here. So Esme, I'm glad you enjoyed that little whistle stop tour. Gosh, I need another beer. Yeah, it's just, you know, explaining, you know, how that's all put together basically, and it'll improve and get tweaked a little bit. Sleepy Eyes Vince, I'm glad that you're learning some stuff from that. That's good. So Yannick is doing some shameless self-promotion, and I'm going to help with this. So Yannick is French Guy CH in chat. Yannick, I think you're a moderator. Are you a moderator? Have I done that sort of thing yet? I can't remember. You're a VIP. I need to sort the moderator stuff out, but you may be able to put a link to your channel in chat. I can't remember. Okay, yeah, we need to sort some mod stuff out. But yeah, Yannick is going to be streaming tomorrow morning, and he is going to be streaming this project, which I will just go and fire off and bring down here. So this is Quick GUI, and this is the front end to QuickEmu, our VM management thing. And as you can see, here it is, because I use this to start my build machine earlier. So here it is running here, and here are the OSs I've got on here. So Windows 10 and 11, all the Macs, and then PyBuilder, and then my dev environment for Ubuntu Mate. So Yannick is going to be adding some new features, I imagine, to this tomorrow. So you want to, and that's all implemented in Dart and Flutter, or I suppose Flutter. So GUI without GUI. I'm not sure what you mean by that, Salvatore boy. I just committed an Arch Linux crime by running Ubuntu or Manjaro via Docker. It's fine. It's fine. So Dragonbane says, yeah, block devices are useful. Can be super frustrating at the same time. Indeed. And that's one of the reasons why all of that stuff you can see there, creating and moving stuff around between block devices and containers, I'm doing it in a VM because in the past, I'm talking years ago, I've had scripts like this that build Pi operating systems in this way for about 6 years or so now. And I used to use CH roots, you know, way back, not containers. And I did at one point have a bug in my script, and I managed to overwrite my system operating system with basically a Raspberry Pi operating system. And you can imagine it just sort of, you know, imploded on itself. It was miserable. So if that awful outcome happens, at least it happens inside a VM, and it's like, oh well, never mind. I'll just restore a snapshot and off we'll carry on, you know, on our merry way. Okay, Yannick, bang SO commands. I'll add that to my list of things I need to do to improve my stream. Yeah, we definitely need that. Quick GUI and QuickEmu are pretty great. So I think, Yannick, what time are you going to be streaming tomorrow? I'll try and get a new release of QuickEmu out, so you've got that with all of the icon stuff all sorted. Looks for an ARM chip, finds x86 instant note. Okay. And sounds like Dragonbane has done something similar, overwriting their main drive with an ISO with DD. Yes, DD is a foot gun for sure. Right then, so I've made one change, literally one tiny change, which was to start as the root user for Ludo. So let's go and take a look at using deb bootstrap. So right at the very top here, we do all of this unpack stuff. So we could leave that behind and we could create a new function to replace it called stage 01 bootstrap. Let's call it that. So let's do that, and we'll put this in down the bottom in our stages runner. And we'll get rid of that. Let's just start with start here, right at the very beginning. And so something that this will have done is probably thrown away. Yeah, so it made a bunch of directories. And because it rsyncs with delete, okay, so that makes sense. So let's steal that. We'll probably need that. And what we'll do is, because we're starting from the very beginning, we'll trash the temp directory. So just to show you what I'm referring to here, why did I go there? That's not. I need to actually show you on the VM. So let's bring up the VM. So in the VM here, we've got this armhf. This is the build directory, that temp-dir, and then Raspberry is the target. So just the plain Raspberry Pi as opposed to one of the cases. And then here's our boot partition, and here's our root partition, or rather a representation of the file systems that will go into those things. So by deleting the temp directory, that will get thrown away. So I think that's probably where we should start, is by tossing that out. And then yeah, so I look here, we can, or rather here, we can see here, and we've got I've got a backup of one that I was working with there, so I'll throw that away as well now, because we don't need that. And I'll need to do that as root because that was created by the container builder. So let's just get rid of that. And we'll let the script do the right thing. So the script is just going to toss all of this away and then create those directories. So let's go and have a look and see what we get. Right, did I save that? So this isn't going to do anything particularly exciting. And actually, yes, public. Probably, there we go. I'll run it for reals. There we go. So that's all it did. And if we go and look, doing it wrong again. In here, we can now have a look at the. Oh, I've done this on the host. Silly boy. It's bad enough I've got virtual monitors, but doing this sort of thing. Right, let's open up this. So we've now got this directory, and it didn't build things in the right place, I don't think. In fact, it's done a bad... Wow, okay. It has just thrown away everything in that directory, including all of the images. So that script is not in a good place. because it totally did the wrong thing. But okay, it deleted everything, but we're not going to be using those server images, so there's no way back now. we have got an empty directory, so we are going to have to make this work. So let's just stop it actually being dumb, because it did just delete everything itself. So what have I got wrong here that is correct with this one? Oh no, so that then does this, so it does create, oh, this is doing the right thing. Or at least, I don't think it needs to do that, because, yeah, okay, because those were mount points basically for the image, so it doesn't need to do this at all. So temp dir is the whole thing. Okay, alright. So maybe it should have been... That is what it should have done, rather than. Let's just go and look at what that is set to. Is the temp directory is the present working directory? Okay. So actually, that's what we wanted to delete, is just B and R, which is for boot and root. So let's go and change that behavior. So and then we don't need that at all, I don't think. So I've got an older script kicking around which did this deb bootstrap thing. So let's go and find that. Might be in my recent files. That's it, build image. So this is a script you can see here. Look, these go back a long time. Okay, so that's mostly the same. We'll come back to that. So here's the bootstrapping piece. So we do that. Let's grab that line there. So QEMU deb bootstrap verbose architecture. So I'm going to need to set that release, okay, and for the root, okay. So I wonder what architecture and release were set to here. I think these may have come from a config file. I don't think they're actually set in the script anywhere. No, okay. Okay. I think I need to go and look at another file here. In fact, we've probably got something similar in this script. We don't have architecture yet, so let's img arch. We'll comment that out, and we'll actually just do this. We know that's going to be ARMHF for the time being. Image version, we can fix that to 2110. Because that's what we're building with. That's fine. That's fine. The image quality, that's fine. Image test, that's not going to work because there is no image anymore, so we don't need to do that. and consequently we don't need to do any of that. So let's comment out all of that as well. And as a result, we won't need any of that. So we'll just comment that out for the moment. And we do need the remix thing, that's fine. Okay. So that is now IMG arc. And this, I think, is going to be... what did we call it? Oh, bother. Didn't make a mental note. Remix. That's going to be remix, I think. Release. Oh, actually, no. No. That's going to be IMG ver, maybe. Well, let's find out what could possibly go wrong. So let's rerun that, and we don't need this IMG thing. Shelling it there, retrieving no such file or directory. Okay, so I'm clearly not in the right place. Has this just removed itself from under me again? Ah, there we go. Let's try running it now. Said expression. Okay, so something to do with said is not happy. Let's go and figure that out. It's not in this, it's up here. I'll just take a little look because I can see there's chat going by. Okay, I can see you're correcting me. Oh, look at these things. Atom's running. Oh, Atom's not running. Huh. How on earth did I not have that running? Sorry, Yannick. How did I close that? I must have closed that myself. Yeah. This is why I want to get this mod thing going so that you can actually... people can interrupt me and actually hold up and what have you. So, clearly, I've overlooked something. I'm going to go and look at your comments. Okay. Image were. You say I've got the wrong... What have we got here? That. So there's that. I mean, that may not be right. It may have to be a code name, but we'll assume the version number is going to work. $10, he doesn't see it. When there is no... it's going to go wrong. Right, thank you. Yeah, we got there. So let's give it a go. I don't know that that's going to be the fix. Oh, well, it didn't do what it was supposed to do. So what's occurring here? Oh, I keep doing this. Why didn't that do anything? Well, let's keep shell check happy. And let's do QMU bootstrap. Is that? Oh! Yes, I am making notes. I have got a list of things that I need to add to the stream to help, like, with this sort of thing. And I think, yes, have a hold up there, Martin, you're doing it wrong, is definitely something we need people to be able to do. Why didn't that run? That's a curiosity. I mean, it's installed. Sweet. Okay. Well, let's... So the other thing I should be able to do is... That may have to be focal, but we'll change this. So copy all of that, then move in here. Paste all of that. There we go. And then we'll change this to ARMHF. Yeah, I think it does need to be the name. So instead of version, we'll make that, gosh, what are we building against? Impish. And the root is going to be ARMHF Raspberry root. So we'll do this by hand and see what happens. There we go. That's working. Right. So let's just stop there. Go back here and let's get this right. Oh, gosh. I think I need two more monitors. So we'll change that to image. Well, it's not image anymore, right? It's going to be code name. Let's just call it release like we had in the original script. So release, and we'll change this back to architecture. No, we won't. No, we won't. IMG. What was this? Arc. This we will change to IMG release, and we'll set this because otherwise I'm going to have to change these variable names throughout the whole script, which I don't want to get into just now. So we'll add this one. IMG release is impish. So that should build a thing. Oh, wrong command, Martin. Let's try that again, shall we? There we go. What? Am I actually calling... Oh, you idiot. I've got a test condition there that is failing, so it doesn't actually do anything. Right then, let's try that again. Remix. Let's go. There we go. Right, so now this is building the very simplest of Ubuntu systems. It's actually downloading the debs from the archive, and they will be extracted, stroked, installed into that directory. So this is giving our container the basic Ubuntu system that it needs. And I can see netplan and a whole bunch of stuff going in there that we don't want, but okay, we can yoink some of these things out. So actually, looking at what's in there, there's a couple of things that we want out, but it's not too bad. So we'll probably just go with it. Just pull out. So there we go. I need to one day. So what's fascinating about this, of course, is that Deb Bootstrap is just, it runs on the host, but this is running inside a container, but it's bootstrapping an ARMHF container using, an x86 workstation. I just absolutely love that. It's great. And so long as you don't do anything too hairy, like trying to do complex code compiles, because the syscall translation is not super great for all of that. If you're just like installing packages and moving data around, it's a perfectly usable environment. The only thing I've run into occasionally is bootstrapping a system this way. When you get into installing things like the desktop environments, you have to sometimes sort of bring up a bit of dbus to actually satisfy some of the install scripts. Right then. Yeah, so Yannick, I think we'll get some mods organised here, and then the mods can like move my camera around, for example, was one of the ideas that Jeff had, or turn the chat on and off when it's in the way of something that I'm showing. So if I bring up a view and I've obscured it, the mods can actually, you know, manipulate the cameras and what have you to, you know, make things clear what's going on. And then, yeah, and a bunch of, you know, the usual moderator stuff. But yes, also to catch my attention in a very obvious way. I think an actual panic button is what we need. But of course, the other thing is it requires me to have actually started Atom. How did I not do that? I have a script that starts all of the things. It starts everything up for me, so I must have closed that myself. I do apologise. Sorry, Yannick, if I'm hampering your own productivity. So once we got this piece of the thing going, I think I'm going to remove this now. We'll go to the code editor. And we will not do that for the moment. We won't clean the thing anymore, because what we'll try and do is like build this up enough that the rest of the script can continue to run. I don't know that Atom crashed. I think it was me. I think it was me. There'd be no reason for it to crash. It wasn't being used for anything. So, isn't deb bootstrap what canonical infrastructure does while making Ubuntu ISOs? It's part of the process, but it's not the sole way that the images are made. No. And in fact, deb bootstrap isn't used in the official image creation process at all. No, it's all done with Germinate in the actual images. So, whole bunch of configuration. So now I'm thinking to myself, is this faster or slower? Right, it's done. Okay. So we have our base operating system, so that's good. So let's go and look at what the original script did next, which was this one. So after it does the bootstrap, what does it do next? Well, it obviously drops some default configuration in. Oh, and then it does this. So we could do that. We could totally do that. Let's go and do that. What's going on here? Why are you being... There we go. So we'll just comment you out for the moment so we don't invoke you a second time. How did I not copy that? So I don't know if we need standard or not. Let's just go over here. Let's bring up a terminal on the host and let's just take a look. Ubuntu minimal. I think most of that is what I think Ubuntu minimal is what deb bootstrap just actually plonked on the system. So we can test that theory. We shouldn't see it add any new stuff. So let's do this. Let's do that as a single step. Was that a... It's a task. So I wonder if it's called that or Ubuntu Minimal. So let's find out. So we're going to go and run our script again. Spawning no such file or directory, failed to stat. I think I see what's going on here. Right, I see the mistake that's been made. Right, okay. We need to modify the nspawn script slightly for this new world order. So in this one, I imagine it's doing something to mount what is the boot. Here we go. Yeah. So we make sure that we mount we create the firmware directory for the Raspberry Pi, and then here we're making sure that that gets bind mounted differently. Okay, so that's a simple enough change to make. We could probably cache that name server stuff better as well. So we need to create that, and let's keep shell check satisfied. And then this line here needs to change to that. And this is to put the separate firmware path, which is outside of our container, inside the container. So it's bind mounting from the outside inside. So that should satisfy that error. So let's go, is it here? And back to the script and run it again. I'm in the wrong path. Up. That. Right, there we go. So actually, I was right. There's no need to try and install the minimal meta package, because it is already installed, as that is what you bring up as a result of doing the deb bootstrap. So we can now move on to, instead of minimal, we can now install standard or not, because what we'll do is we'll go and look at what is in the standard package and see, well, is there anything in there that we actually need? So let's just go and look at this. This will do. So what's in Ubuntu standard? DNS utils, busybox, CPIO cron. I'll just turn chat off a second. How big is that going to be? So Plymouth, the SSH client. I reckon we're probably going to want a good deal of that. So let's just include it so we get a relatively straightforward system. So, and then software properties common is what gives you things like apt-add repository. So we'll let those two install and run, and that should give us a more sort of, I'm in the wrong device again, here we go. So let that run. So here comes the standard package. And installing it as a task is the right thing to do, as opposed to installing the meta package. This installs it in the same way that the image preparation process does. So, germinate. Tried to pull germinate in other tools. Yeah, germinate's interesting. It doesn't quite behave how you'd think it would based on the names of some of the seeds. Okay, so Yannick says here he bought a DisplayPort dongle, so I now have a need for a virtual 3D screen that you're going to use. What? Explain this? What are you doing? I bought a DisplayPort dongle, that bit I understand. And now I have a virtual third screen. That makes more sense. So, so this is what I'm doing essentially. You're doing it with DisplayPort instead of HDMI. I get it. So you have been putting your dev windows somewhere on a monitor up till now, I assume. Right then. So the question is, nice. Yeah, it's. I think it's still a bit complicated to do a stream that way, where you have, you know, this virtual monitor that just doesn't exist, but it is what I'm looking at. I have OBS open right in front of me, and I am looking at what is on this third screen that doesn't exist as the way in which I'm, you know, doing this. So I think that's definitely easier. But it's still a bit of a mind bender sometimes, because you're just like, oh, why is the mouse not responding? And it's like, oh, because I'm like in a vanished world. Right, okay, so this is bringing up all of this stuff. So let's just take a little look at the rest of the script and get a feel for if that is going to behave itself. We don't need you anymore. So this is bootstrapping the system. We're not going to call the unpack step, so we're not doing any of that. And all of this is effectively replaced by what we're doing. And we don't need to do any of this, so we don't need to call the remove step. Well, maybe we do actually, because there is one thing we want to remove. And technically we shouldn't need to do this, because there shouldn't be any snaps in this system at the moment. So Von Ransack says you need a cardboard cutout. What's this for? Welcome to the stream, by the way. Cardboard cutout of what? Right, so we probably don't need to run that step either. So we can probably jump straight into this bit, which is standing up the network configuration. Oh, a placeholder for the virtual monitor. Yeah, that wouldn't help. So my virtual monitor would be sort of wedged in between the desk and the floor. It's like below this monitor in front of me. It's just, in fact, I can show you where it is. Here is my, it's on the right screen and everything. Here is my display setup. The green and the blue here side by side, these are my actual physical monitors. And then this one here, the XMD 27-inch something or other, doesn't exist. It's off the bottom of my, main primary monitor. And here it is. My mouse wiggling around is on this invisible, doesn't exist screen. So that's how I have things arranged. So I can, do things like this. I can, just drag windows on and off the thing that I'm streaming from. So I've found that to be quite a useful trick. See ya, Salvatore boy. Thanks for stopping by, and thanks for the follow earlier. I hope you'll stop by and visit again. Right then, I really need. I'm like, all this talking. It's hard going. So I think we can step directly to step 4, which is the network. and then step 5 and step 6, and these should work, right? Step 4, step 5, and we'll get all the way down here to system config. All of this will be fine. He says confidently. We'll see if it's going to be fine. And then the cleanup piece, and here we'll do something different. So let's enable everything up to the clean. So we've just said we don't need to do a remove of these bits, but we do need to do all of that. And we won't need to do the bootstrap piece anymore, because that's been completed. 8bot, hello, welcome. So 8bot says random feedback, but I put Ubuntu Mate on my MSI G65 Stealth. Okay, excited to get Overwatch running, as this is literally the only reason I don't daily Linux on my personal laptop. Okay. I am delighted to hear that you have decided to use Ubuntu Mate. Thank you very much. But yes, Cody is right. If you go to wimpysworld.io/discord, that's where all of us here that, you know, revolve around projects we work on this stream, and also the Ubuntu Mate live chat community are. So by all means, stop in there, and if you've got questions, ask, and there are people there to help you. Overwatch, that's a bang bang shooty shooty game, isn't it? It's an esports thing, so that's proper. Does that have anti-cheat? Nice one, 8bot. Okay, so it is esports, and does it have anti-cheat? And if so, is it one of the ones that's supported by the recent no anti-cheat that you know of? Okay, good. Well, that'll be interesting. Do join. Do let us know in the Discord how you get on with that. I'll be fascinated to know. So let's go and see if that part of the build is finished. It has. Oh, here we go. These are these like dbus messages that sometimes I hammer up a dbus instance, but I won't bother. We'll just assume it's going to be fine. What could possibly go wrong? So we've just enabled a bunch of additional steps. So we'll let that do its thing. And while it's doing its thing, I will blindly make what I think the next bunch of changes are to the script. So let's go. So there it is. It's removing netplan because we know we want to use conman exclusively. Whoa. Okay. So I see my first mistake. Maybe you can too. Let's kill all of that. So the first mistake is this. We don't have an apt sources list to tell it where to get other packages from. So we're going to need to add this in the bootstrap stage here. So we'll just comment those 2 lines out. And we will copy over the template for our apt repository configuration, which is here. So we'll have that. And we'll grab that line as well. So we'll chuck in that, which will create an apt sources list file. And then there we go. We don't need another function. We don't need to close that. And then inside, with that in place, we could now, in fact, I suppose what we should probably do. Yeah, no, that's fine there. Let's do that. And we've just turned off those 2 lines, so we need to re-enable the bootstrap piece down the bottom here, just so it runs that bit. So let's go and kick that off now. So...
Thank you for the follow, Von Ransack.
Thank you very much for the follow. I appreciate that. Well, that didn't work as intended, did it? So, what have I missed? Let's just have a little look here. We obviously missed something important. It says not found. So that implies does not have a release file. Oh. Used the wrong variable name, haven't we? Right. So up here, it's not release. It is img release. Oh. Whoa. So let's do that. And okay, good job. That looks probably like it's gonna do something different. If let's run this again. Right, now it's doing the apt refresh and we can see it's hitting multiverse, universe, all of the repositories. So that will now mean when we get to the next install phases, it should find all the packages we're requesting of it. So let's see how this goes. Now we should see it install. What's the first thing we want to do? All the Ludo stuff. Now, one of the other advantages of doing it this way is by starting... I'll stop talking. So, I think there's 5 seconds-ish. So, hopefully, we're all back, just finished. They should only be 15 seconds. So, hopefully that's not too obnoxious. Yeah, but I wish the notifications, because it does have I do have this notification thing turned off, but it's over here and it's not in your face and it just doesn't catch your attention. I think what we need for Atom is, if APIs exist, is have Atom actually do something better about like when the ads are coming around. Because yeah, I don't want 15 seconds. I'm not going to say anything important in 15 seconds probably, but it'd be nice if that didn't happen. So one of the advantages is there's no kernel inside this container at the moment. And what was happening when I was using the pre-installed image is that the initial RAM disk was being rebuilt at, several times throughout the whole build process, and that's quite an expensive process. So what I'm thinking is we'll install all of the kernel stuff right at the very end, so that we only have to do that initial RAM disk generation once, rather than it being triggered by other package installations throughout the sort of assembly process. So this is installed X. Let's have a look here. What have we got? So Beyond Void, what do you classify as weird? What? Okay. Could be worse. YouTube sometimes has minute-long ads. Well, I've configured it. I've told it. I think this is the minimum that I can do, 15 seconds an hour. Which, I'm not here to make money off ads at all. So I'm trying to keep that to a minimum. Right. I got to thank Monica for the sub. Oh yeah, so you got a gifted sub, Big Pod, so you wouldn't see them anyway, so that's good. How did I manage not to stumble on a channel with those enabled? With what? Ads? That's the same question I'm asking myself. I've missed the context there. Can you fill me in what you're referring to? What is it? How did I manage to not stumble on a channel with those enabled? So Yannick has never seen an ad on Twitch before. Ever. Interesting. Yeah, okay. Wimpy's World, minute-long Twitch ads. Yeah, okay. Well...
Thank you for the follow, Flannel Fitzy.
Thank you, Flannel Fitzy, and welcome to the stream. So, we're nearly done here. This is building out some stuff. So, I was just saying about, you know, kernels and what have you. So, let's actually go and deal with what will be the last piece of this puzzle, which will be to install the kernel. Install the kernels. So if we look at these steps here, I'm sure somewhere here we have a bunch of packages that we're going to install. Oh, in actual fact, I've installed the kernel here rather accidentally. So we'll just comment this out for the moment and we'll relocate this to where I want it to be for the other bits. So I think what we'll do is we'll drop it in here. And we'll just call it stage. Well, it's not going to be 7. We'll call it 8 for the moment. Stage 8 kernel. This is one of the packages that we want to install for sure. And we'll get some clues here. So we don't need to do any of this analysis in the cleanup step now, because what this was designed to do was, because it was using those images, it's quite often there was a kernel update, so it was making sure that it removed the old kernel and then updated the system with the new image. So I think I wonder if there's a non-versioned name for this. I'm going to have to go and look up the Raspberry kernel images. Let me just think where to do that. I could do this here. One moment. So, let me just see what people are catching up on. So, minute-long ads. That's weird, Yannick. I don't know how you've managed that. I always saw them when I went to a new channel. I would see the pre-rolls. Almost always. I say I used to. I still do. So I'm just looking up. I'll bring this window over in a moment. Ubuntu source. Is it Linux Raspberry? Is that the kernel source package? Yes, it is. Right, let's unpin this. Move. Why can't I make? I do that. There we go. So let's just make that small. There we go. So this is the source package in Ubuntu for the Raspberry Pi optimized kernel. So I've highlighted everything. I didn't mean to do that. So what we'll be able to see in here is the names of all of the the packages. So if we look down here, ooh, wow, this is interesting. look at all of that stuff. I need to go and look through these change logs a bit more thoroughly and see what changed recently, because I haven't done that for a while. So this is a regular Ubuntu kernel with the all the Raspberry Pi patches on top. So we are looking at, they're all versioned Linux Raspberry. So we don't want to install the versioned files, because those won't upgrade. We want to install the meta packages because then they will upgrade. So this is only telling us the names of the versioned packages, and we need to know the names of the meta packages. So let's have a think here. There we go. Let's have a look here. What's this going to tell us? There we go. These are 2 to start with. So Linux Meta Raspberry. Okay. So Linux headers Raspberry, Linux image Raspberry. We'll start with those 2. So that should get us the basics, but I think we want to just have a look at what's in here. So here we go. Linux firmware. That's a depends, so we don't need to specify that. But we do want the... We know that there's this additional modules. Well, we'll start with that and we'll see what we get. And maybe we'll move that somewhere else in the process at some point. Okay, so that's probably the minimal to get us a kernel. And let's have a think. Where is this building? Over here. And in fact, it's done. So that's installed all of the Ludo stuff, so we can go back to our build script. Not like that, I keep doing this. We can go back in here and in the order of things, so install desktop. So I don't think that install desktop thing has run on account of the fact that the last thing oh, okay, no, that's fine. That's adding the user to the group. Home directory storage already exists. Oh, so not copying. Okay, so I've made a mistake in my script there. I can't create those directories until the end, so I need to do that later on in the script. So let's go and move that now before I forget. So everything to do with standing up those directories. That will be why it was in the wrong place. Okay, I understand now. So everything to do with those directories. Is where? Around here somewhere. Here. So all of that we will move out of there to the system configuration after the user has been created. So let's look for the user being made. There it is. So we will do this bit here. There we go. So those won't tread on each other now. And so the last thing that should have run is that. Yes, there it is. Adding the Ludo user is indeed the what would have been the last bit of that. Okay, good. Okay, so we have got to the end of this, albeit not quite what we wanted. So we can try messing around with this kernel now. So we can do a couple of things to help ourselves here. We'll do apt show. That, which will also, we'll do this at the end so we can see it on the screen. So we'll just run that kernel step now as the only step that we run. So all of this, it's not running right in quite the right order, but it has run in some way. And then we've got a new stage 8 that we're working on, which is our stage 8 kernel. So let's just go and run that and see what we get. So what have we got here? Linux firmware, headers, image, Linux modules. Okay, so Linux modules extra, I think, is what we're missing. I think that might be the package name that we need to add. And this installs everything to do with bringing up the kernel, and because it's using the meta packages, brings in the Raspberry Pi specific bits as well. Right, let's see how chat's getting on then. I just realised, talking to Phil, that I also have Adblock Plus installed. Okay. Okay. So Adblock Plus says yes, you can use it to block ads on Twitch. Interesting. I can't actually believe that in a week or two things will actually be happening. Let's hope so, Big Pod. Let's hope so. So, the Kurt. Is that how I'm pronouncing that? The Kurt work? It's always so difficult. Is there a tool that merges the functionality of apt file and who has, for example? I want to see if a package in one release has stopped providing a particular file compared to... Oh gosh, I don't know. I don't know. That's a great question. Is there a tool that merges the functionality of those two things? Not that I am aware of. Not that I am aware of. Yeah, still going, Eric. This was an opportunity to get some stuff done. To do a little bit of show and tell at the front and then actually get some stuff done. This is the getting stuff done bit. So we completely reworked the way this image is built. And I think it's a bit jank because we've made some mistakes along the way. But if it spits out an image at the end of this and we're able to boot off it, then I can then go in and hoover up the mess. And most importantly, this is a simple way for other people to use the same technique to, you know, make their own projects and things, which would be kind of cool. Come on, finish. So this, as you can see, this is building the initial RAM disk. And we're only going to have to do that once. In fact, we're going to have to do it twice because I've got some kernel modules missing. But in a full build run, it will only have to do this once. At the end, Martin's thinking about something else he needs to consider that I might just have to have a little think about. As opposed to this being triggered through hooks at multiple times during the sort of the assembly of these components. So the thing I was just like, oh, I need to think about is I have to do this little dance with device tree and overlays, and I'm just wondering where that is embedded in this. So that's building the image. This is the cleanup. It's here. Okay, so I think we're going to be fine. So this is the bit that moves the images around. But it's looking for new kernel. So we need to keep that line there. We may as well keep that line. So we will need to keep these bits in the cleanup steps. So it's not so much the new kernel in this case anymore, it's the current kernel. And we removed the old... Oh, there we go. That is in fact the name of the package that we need. So that needs to go into the function above. Like so. And I'll also show that as well, because I'm curious to know if there's anything else there that we need to be looking at. So, oops, I've just saved a running script. That was a mistake. Okay. Let's have a look. Fine. I think we're going to run that again just as is, because what have we done here? We've just added an additional thing to be installed and we want to see what's in there. So we'll just take a look at that. That's the only stage that's going to run. So let's just kick that off again and see what that actually pulls in. Here we go. Just that. So I wonder if there's just Linux modules Raspberry as well. So let's go and whilst that's running, we'll just go and add that to our list and just see what happens. I'm doing my virtual screen confusion again. Okay. So let's just here. Oh gosh, am I in the here? Let's try that. I don't know if that package exists or not, but let's try and install it all the while. So we'll just drop the extra. Okay. Okay then, let's have a look here. So so the Kurt says they're working on a bug, and as far as I can tell, it seems like in Focal, libc6dev provides a, sorry, it got hashed out, it provides a file, but in Impish it doesn't. I see. Yeah, okay, so you're thinking that a file has moved to a different sub package or what have you. Yeah. Okay. Our podcast, all good. No child this weekend. Oh, I'm catching up on 500 million projects I need to finish. libdl.so. Okay. Yeah, I don't, off the top of my head, I don't know. But I understand what you're trying to achieve, and I don't know of something that merges the capability of apt file and who has. Right, okay, we're gonna do this dance one last time. It's the initial round. See what I mean? This takes a long time, which is why this will be one of the benefits of changing the way this build process works, because like I say, just one time round the loop with that, although while we're iterating many times around the loop with this. So what else do I need to to do? This was the big thing I wanted to do, because this sort of moves back to a prior way of building this stuff, and I think it's a little nicer. And I suppose the other thing is, so what I've learned is that by working on the Ubuntu Retro Remix, I now know there's a bunch of optimizations in the Ubuntu Mate images that for the Raspberry Pi that can be made. So I thought that the Beta 1 images that we released last weekend were probably good, but now I can see they can be significantly improved. So
Thank you for the follower ___o.
thanks for the follow, Otto. I'll tell you what, if there's anyone in here who hasn't followed, could you push us up to the 120 marker? That would be fab. My OCD would thank you. Yeah, what was I saying? Yeah, so I've figured out that we can optimize the Ubuntu Mate images as well. So I'm going to get on and make those changes and release maybe beta 2 images of the Ubuntu Mate stuff.
Thank you for the follow, Flannel Fitzy.
Didn't you just follow? Clever. You've got multiple Twitter accounts. Thank you very much. Well done. That's terrific. Thank you very much for helping achieve that milestone for me. I appreciate that. See you, 8bot. Thanks for stopping by. Yannick's off for a walk. And what's our podcast doing? Scraping content from websites using XPath. Oh my god, that sounds miserable. Gosh, scraping screens and scraping websites. The world just doesn't evolve, does it? Oh, is it an ABI bump? Is that what you're suggesting, Big Pod? It's nearly done. There it is. Come on. Right then, there we go. So that's done. We're going to run this one more time with feeling because we want to see if this Linux modules Raspberry exists. I don't know if it does or not, where we're about to learn together. Did I save it? Yeah, I think I did. Yeah. Oops. There we go. Hopefully this is a no-op. Yep, there it is. It says that doesn't exist. So, good. Let's go and get that out of there then. We don't need to do those show lines. We don't need that. So, at this point, we will do this, but I don't think any of those things are going to do anything significant, but we'll leave them in there for the moment. So then it's going to get the current kernel, and we don't need to do any of this removal stuff because we've literally just installed the kernel, and then we want this device tree stuff to work, and none of that should be necessary because there was no clouding it in an image because we didn't use an image. Okay, let's go with that. We won't do the image step because I am deeply suspicious that this is going to be busted all to hell. Let's think about this. It does a boot loop and a boot root image image out. What's that? Where's that coming from? Okay. Just, I tell you what, let's assume that code I wrote is fine. Let's just assume it's going to work. So let's go back in here. We'll, golly gosh, let's do this right. Let's change this so that we don't run the kernel step. We'll just do a clean and an image. We won't do the hashing because that's not necessary at this stage. Let's do those two steps and see what we get. So this shouldn't do much. It should do the device tree copying around thing. But there shouldn't be anything like significant outstanding. Oh wow, what's all that? Those things need to be upgraded. What? Well, there's surprising. Why on earth do those... Oh, because we've added the updates apt repository in the build process. Okay. That makes sense. Yes. Okay. So, that's fine. So actually, I don't want to do this in this order. I want to make sure the kernel stuff is installed before we do this final cleanup step, or this apt like catch-up step, because this is going to trigger an initial RAM disk rebuild, which we don't want. So let's have a look. First time, so Flannel Fitzy says, I forgot I had 2 accounts. So when I started watching on PC versus my phone, it used the other account. Perfect. Well, thank you very much. That's a happy coincidence for me. I appreciate you doing that. Oh, retro gaming data, Eric. Okay, all right. Well, you got my... Oh, hello. What was this? Oh dear. Oh, this, yeah, it did. It went all horribly wrong. Look at this. Look, it's all bad. So all of this is no good. So none of this worked either. So where did we get to? Where did we get to before it all started going wrong? All this is good, and then the wheels come off here. So cannot stat. Okay. Why doesn't it know what provides those files, I wonder? So lib firmware. So none of those files exist, so that's clearly bad. But it did copy the kernel over just fine. No such directory. Oh, so the boot, it doesn't know about the boot partition. Or rather, the directory, which is a representation of the boot partition. Let's just go and take a little look at that. Oh, sure enough, there is no boot here. Look, we've just got root. Well, that explains a lot. So why is that the case? So we make... Oh, inside the... Oh, this is in a different place entirely. Okay. Bother. Okay. This is all busted. So I'm going to have to unpick that mess. Okay, let's just go and look. We should be able to find... Oh, come on. Virtual screens, man. So in here, there should be a boot. There it is. And here's the firmware. Okay, but there is no firmware. Ugh. Okay, let's think about that. Let's do a quick search over here. Well, that looks like the very obvious missing bit of software. So here we go. There is a package. Copy link address. So let's just look at that source package. Okay. Good. There is a source package that we need to install. So we need to do that as part of our kernel jamboree down here. And that is this package here, which is, oops, it's the whole URL, which we didn't need. Linux firmware Raspberry 2 is rather important to proceedings. But the other problem we've got, which is quite the problem, is that I've changed something fundamental in how the boot directory is overlaid on the file system, so it's actually there. So I don't think anything's making those directories anymore, is it? But they were made by root, so I don't think I can get rid of them. So let's just go and look at that. In the very early stages up here, we've got this. So this is always making boot firmware, and it is always mounting that to there. Okay. Yeah, I don't want that. Okay. We need to unpick this a little bit. So we probably need down here something, yeah, these here. Where does it derive? Oh, that's passed in. Okay. So let's just do boot and root. Let's look at the those would have been created by rsync originally, I believe. Let's just go and look at the original bit of code, because we kept that function intact. None of this removed. It was this here. So where were these created? That's looking at the image. It's all introspecting the image, and then we do this. These are mount points. Oh, and then we do this. So that is, in fact, that is what I've just done down below, but we need to put it in this piece here. Like so. Potentially clean them up like that. Okay. And I probably therefore need to change this back to what it was. So we'll just revert that change. Like so. We get rid of the make directories we just added down here because they're redundant now. And then let's see if we can get away with this. If we pick up that and do, in fact, no, I'm going to have to do it like this. Open that in a terminal and do here. So if we move that directory out of there, gosh, can't type my password. That's surprising. Oh, my password is test, by the way. Right then. Okay, so I've now moved that area which we're treating as the boot file system. Oh, it's empty. No, it's not. Oh, no, it's not. Of course, silly boy. Right, okay. So that's got everything in it, but it's missing firmware. Has no firmware in it, which is also fine if I was in the right directory and I typed the command. Okay, good. So we're done there. So we've separated these back out into places that the script is expecting to find them. And there's one other change we need to make, holding this in my head is up here we've got this creating a directory we no longer require, because that will be made by the bootstrapping process. Oh, but it needs to exist. No, it needs to exist inside there, doesn't it? Because it's effectively a mount point. Okay. Okay. How are we looking? There's half a chance that might work. Half a chance. Let's see. So let's not do the image bit at the moment. We need to redo the kernel bit. We need to redo the clean.
Thank you for the follow, Chew_King.
Hey Chew King, thanks for the follow and thanks for stopping by. How you doing? Do you run Linux? What's the distro you're using? So we're going to drop back into here, which is going to install the firmware. So we need to rerun that stage, which means the initial RAM disk is going to get built again. Then we'll go into this cleanup step and we should see the firmware being copied around the place. That'll be good.
Thank you for the follow,
Thanks,
8_bot.
Right then, so we're going to do those two steps, and if those work, then we'll have to go at building an image. So let's go. So this should install one package, which has got a ton of files in it. No, it didn't. What? What? How is that installed and not in the right place? So we're going to have to go firmware hunting, because it claims that package is installed. But this whole piece here, which copies the images around, can't see it. And this, oh hello, we've got a variable missing here. Look there, we've got a double path. So I'm obviously looking for something there that I couldn't see. So let's go and have a look. Let's go and have a look what that was trying to do. So that's in the cleanup step, that piece. New kernel. Okay. Oh, hang on. Now we know what new kernel is. New kernel is this here. So why is that showing us blank? I'm sure that was printing out a kernel number up here. Let's have a look. No, I can't actually see it. Okay. So it's not finding a kernel. So how is it actually looking for a kernel? Let's go and see if we can find it by hand. New kernel is pointing to where you've just moved it from. Oh, okay. It's also looking inside rboot VM Linux, and that may not actually exist anymore because of me monkeying around with it. Let's go and have a look. Yeah, so it has been moved there. Doesn't explain why this is all absent though. Lib firmware. There it is. Device tree. There they all are. Okay. Lib. Device tree. Oh! I see why it's not copied, because... Sorry. I see. I get your point now, Phil. So new kernel is empty because it's already moved it, and that was what it was using to detect it. So we actually need to add a bit of code there to say if new kernel is empty, actually go and look in the firmware directory to find the kernel and get the version from that. So I think that would then be what we need to do. So let's go and do that very quickly. We're very close to having a thing here. So we need to do this. If hang on. Oh, thank you very much, Flannel. I'm very sorry, but she normally reads out your name, and sometimes it doesn't work. And I apologise that on your sub it didn't read out your name. But thank you very much. I appreciate that. So if it's empty, then we'll try and get the new kernel from a different location. And we'll get it from B. Let's just go and look at the path. It's going to be in just the root of B. So we're just going to be doing that. Exactly the same technique, but in a different place. And we won't check to see if that's valid or not. We're just going to hope it is. So I think we're at a point where we can just do the cleanup step. So let's go and comment out the kernel stage down here. I think we're done with that. And we'll give that a run. Let's see if it prints a kernel version number somewhere in this mess of stuff. Oh, Yannick. Don't see a kernel number yet. This is doing all of the apt bits, isn't it? Apt update, apt upgrade. No. It got a kernel number though. Here we go. So it found a kernel version, and then it looked in here and it said there was no DTB files, no such file or directory. And that looks in root boot. Okay, I've obviously changed quite a lot in the way these images were built. So why is it not finding that? So lib firmware something device tree. So let's go back to where we were. We were looking in lib firmware. Is that fine? Oh, I did not want you to do that. Lib firmware 5.13. Okay, come on. 5.13.0 dash that dash recipe. Well, it's definitely there. And then device tree. So that one doesn't exist, that's fine. But then we get to Broadcom, which doesn't exist, and then overlays. And there is definitely files there. So I'll just catch up with some of this. So let's have a look here. Big Pod, did you see the Linux video by Linus Tech Tips? You're referring to video 1, I assume. If I know they're doing multiple parts, I have seen part 1. I don't know if they've published other ones since. Yannick is not a fan of Linus Tech Tips by all accounts. Yeah, I saw that. But yeah, it was a bad package in the Pop! OS PPA that led to that apt catastrophe. Yeah, I think Luke was conservative in his choices and he did well. And I think that apt catastrophe, there's two things there. First of all, it was a bad package and shit happens, and that's unfortunate. But 10 minutes in to installing your first Linux distro, when you get thrown to the terminal and your get out is it wants to remove a load of packages, but before it does that, you have to type in the exact phrase with the correct case and everything. Yes, I know what I am doing. I think 10 minutes into your first distro installation, every character you typed as you were typing that out should have been a red flag suggesting I do not know what I am doing right now. It should have been enough of a break to stop. But it doesn't change the fact he got thrown into a terrible place. And, that's not on him. That's on the PPA being busted for Pop! OS. Right, I'm not seeing why this isn't working. So it says here, lib firmware. It's definitely in the right place. Lib firmware, that version number, device tree. Why is it not finding this stuff? You know what? I'm going to cheat. I am going to cheat. I've just thought of a great way we're going to cheat the system. Let's see if we can do this. Let's go back up here. Let's not check if this stuff exists. Let's just go and do it. So all of this. So that shouldn't be our boot. That should just be... Oh, yeah, that should be B. Directly these two. And these two lines should just be this. Copy the device tree. To... Where should it be? B. Firmware. I think is what we need. That. In fact, not a trailing slash. And then we don't need any of this here. We just do a copy of that. Let's try that. And let's change our cleanup step to not do these bits, because this is actually not adding anything to the experience. So let's try that. Let's see what happens now. Ah, well, there we go. That's more like it. They are the same file. Good. Oh. Oh, okay. So that should have been copied to a different place. Boot, root, boot. Okay. Okay, got it. Got it. So now it's finding the kernel numbers. That change I've made down here was wrong. So this line, we should... I only want to roll back those two, but okay. But what's it done? It's sort of thrown away my history there. I'm looking for what that used to be. So copy that to the... So the root boots to... I don't think that's... I think that's fine. I think that's fine, actually. I think I've done it right. We will find out. So that simplified that final copy step. We don't check to see if there is stuff. We just slap the whole thing over the top. Okay, right. Okay. I think we'll go to the image building piece now and see if this boots. It'll be miraculous if it does, because we've really thrown it around quite a bit. Like, I've manually massaged it a couple of times, so I don't expect this is going to work, but let's find out. So, oh, the image building piece is almost certainly going to fail, because the path to R and B... Oh no, that might be alright. We'll see. Okay. Somewhat nervous, but go. Oh, that looks bad. Okay, that's all very bad. Stop. I don't know where you're syncing things to, but I don't like what you're doing. Okay, can't remove its directory. DD failed to open. Oh dear. Oh dear. Opened. Read write. It's only been... Oh dear. I think this is... You know what I was saying earlier? I'm doing this in a VM and no bad things can happen. Well, I think a bad thing may have just happened, but thankfully it's stuck inside. Where's my File Explorer gone? That's not what I want. Okay. Oh, are these boot and root the mount points that it needs? Okay. I wonder where it put things. I wonder if it copied things over the root file system. Right, I will just catch up. Yeah, it was a packaging bug. You know, you can't blame Linus. I mean, what you can blame him for is whether he should have typed the words that he knew what he was doing. That's where the blame begins and ends. And, you know, he's new. He's under time pressure. He's making a video. I mean, this is the other thing. This is part of a content schedule. This isn't somebody making these explorations, you know, at a casual pace, you know, as and when they can fit it in. He's running to time on this. He hasn't got time to, well, you know, throw his whole system away, as it turns out. You know, he wants to move as quickly as possible, so he may not have been, you know, as diligent as perhaps he should have been because of time pressure. But that's, you know, another thing which makes this sort of experience not entirely true to life. Right, what have we got going on here? This is... I feel like I'm missing something small in this equation here. So let's have a look. We've got mount directories. Mount directory is temp image. Okay. So the first thing is, it all starts to go wrong up here. So the first thing it does is this. It looks at the root and it tries to determine the size. And we know what the... And then it tries to get rid of image out. We don't know what that is, so there are no old images. I don't think. Image out. Was that a variable down here? Aha! Oh no, that's the file name. So this can't be... there, this is wrong. Okay. So the image out is going to be a very different... So this needs creating. So image out is going to be equal to Ubuntu Retro Remix, the remix type, the image ver. So this is a leftover from the old bit, so we don't... This is why Sed was complaining, so that's where that message came from. And it's image ver quality. Think that's it. Something like that. It's close enough. So we've now got an image out name, so we can try and delete one if one was there. And there's an actual file for it to attach to now. Okay, so this is probably why it was failing. But then we need to do things like .img. There we go. Let's just go and look very quickly at the pre-install image. So let's go and look at what the actual image is named like. And it's going to look a little bit like releases, impish, release, copy link address. Let's just paste that into the editor. Strip the URL. Okay, so we're going to end up with something like this. So Ubuntu, the retro remix thing, image version. We don't need pre-installed. So image version. Quality does have a tag on it. And then we want to do dash img arc. There we go. That is a more correct file name. You know what? Let's just see what happens if we run that. There's half a chance that's going to do something useful. There we go. Now we're whistling Dixie. There we go. Oh, has it missed anything? No, that looks okay. So we've got the boot partition, we've got the root file system. It didn't like some of these things. Rsyncing a symlink operation not permitted. Okay, so I've got something slightly broken in the way I'm moving the initial RAM disk around. What on earth's this? No such file. I better go and find out what that is. But it's made an image. This is a bit concerning. Let's go and see what's in those things. So what was 708 about? Oh, I see. We are just doing that. Okay, so where should that go? There's no .disk directory, that's why. So we need to do that. And that will now work. Okay. This rsync symlink firmware failed, operation not permitted. Why? Why doesn't it like that? Well, we've got our image, so let's go and take a look at it. Here it is. So it's 641. I think that's 20 megabytes smaller than what we had before, so it's a slight saving. And if we open that with the image writer, but let's get the USB drive, and we'll turn on automatically mount things inside my virtual machine. So let's plug that in. Okay, and let's write that with the image writer. And is that the right place? Yes. Corsair, start, restore, and test. Right then. It's interesting that putting the larger amount of data on is faster than the compressed option. XZ is a very expensive compression algorithm. So I've not been catching up on the thing here. So hey Adam, how are you? Right, okay, let me explain. So Ubuntu Retro Remix is a new operating system for the Raspberry Pi for you to play your retro games and stuff on, you know. So it's a project I started about a year ago and then didn't do anything with, and then I've recently rebooted. So it's a bit like RetroPie, for example, but much simpler. That's the goal, at least. And earlier on today I did demonstrate it, and it was working, and played some games and stuff. And what I've been doing since then is changing the way the build system works, which is a pretty invasive change, but in the long run will be a good thing. So let's go and look. That's finished. So let's mount up the boot and writable. That looks wrong. So wrong. Oh dear. So I'm going to have to go and rework all of that, because I've clearly got my pathing wrong here. This is not a big problem. I could actually manually unmess that up. But what we'll do is I won't do that, because so this won't boot. I can just see that these things are in the wrong place. These things should be in there. But this is the root file system, and this is probably fine. Yeah, that's empty, so that's fine. What's the place where random stuff gets left? Oh, and actually, something that's missing from here, there's no config files, so where did those get written to? Yeah, so there's no So something's wrong in earlier parts of the script that write out the cmd.txt and config.txt. So this is close. It's not going to boot. I just need to go and check some of the places where the paths are being used and get those right so that it actually organizes this boot partition correctly. But it has got all of the right things in it. They're just not in the right place. But all of the right ingredients are here. They're just strewn around in slightly unusual places. But that's fine. I can work with that. So I won't manually fudge this, I don't think. But I'm pretty happy with that. That's a pretty simple thing for me to sit down with a cup of coffee in the morning and just bumble through and sort that out. But how long have we been streaming? A very long time, and it's quite late here now. So I think we will go and find somebody doing stuff. Let's go and find somebody doing interesting stuff. Let's refresh this page. Is he still streaming? No, they're not, of course. That did look interesting, though. Okay. Finding 0 days. Well, that's interesting. Wow, he's got a lot of viewers. Oh, perfect. Here we go. This is absolutely exactly what we need. Right then. We will go and raid this person here. Who's sending wow things, Big Pod? Yes, I am using a front end for TV screens. It's called Ludo. And it's great. If you roll back to the beginning of the stream is me doing a bit of show and tell, actually showing how it works and the objectives and all the rest of it. So if you watch the first 20 minutes, it's like a clean, simple implementation of something like RetroPie. So thank you all very much for coming. I enjoyed that. I got loads done. We're going to head over to Grimley, who is doing a Raspberry Pi setup day, which seems fitting. So we're going to hop over there and have some fun. Bye for now.